Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm Reverend Tomas. What is justice? Ooh, well, isn't that a good question? What is justice? That is the question that we're dealing with here today, and we're going to talk about here in the Manual for Teachers. Now, this again is the third of the main components of A Course in Miracles. And if you have not been through this before, it's very cool. Actually, they're all very cool, all components of this course. But the Manual for Teachers posits certain questions that a spiritual practitioner, someone on the path, such as yourself, might ask, and whether they ask it of a human teacher or non-human teacher, well, it's something that they just think, right? They're very good questions, and the manual assumes a style of an FAQ section. Now, of course, this was all dictated to Helen Schucman before websites. So it was begun in the mid 1960s and finished in the 1970s. So this was before the World Wide Web and the internet and all that fun stuff, before we knew what an FAQ section was. Here was the Manual for Teachers. And question 19, which we arrive at today, is what is justice? Interesting, isn't it? Isn't that an interesting question? Because we think about justice so much, and in the thinking of the world, it's something that has meaning, but it's elusive, isn't it? We think of a justice system or a criminal justice system. We think of our legal system as attempting to bring justice, but it doesn't, right? Because criminals walk every day, and people that are highly culpable of criminal acts get away with all kinds of stuff all the time. Judges, being human, make mistakes. Attorneys, being humans representing other humans, being judged by other humans, make mistakes. Juries, at least here in the United States, a panel of 12 citizens, well, that was 12 people making mistakes. It's not really a justice system. And when we hear about a verdict or an outcome of a case, let's just continue with the legal system as an example here. We think, okay, justice has been served. But what is it? What exactly is justice? Well, in sentence one, Jesus gives us a very short, very concise, very true answer that we're going to need to elaborate on, because here in Egoville, in other words, the world where we think we're individuals running around, competing against other individuals, taking each other to court, arguing over minutia, really little shit, often. But Jesus says justice is the divine correction for injustice. How about that? Right? It's the divine correction for injustice. Well, what exactly does that mean? Can we please elaborate? Let's do that. So, injustice can be equated here in the thought system of A Course in Miracles with identifying with the ego. It can be equated with attack. And remember that an attack thought is any thought that comes from consciousness itself. Yeah, anything here in the world that posits a self and a separate other, separate self, separate other, that any thought based on that is actually an attack thought, whether you aim to harm another person or not. What is it an attack on? Reality, where there are no separations of people. There's no separation of any kind. It's an attack on reality. It's proclaiming what is untrue to be true. so-called reality, where I appear to be a man speaking a language that we refer to as English, though I speak two others, and I appear to be what we call middle-aged, and really what you're looking at and listening to is an image that's projected on your screen, and how the sound gets in there too, I don't have any idea, but let's use that, shall we? We all appear to be here running around separately, yet we're not separate at all. So any thought that we have that is ego driven, whether you aim to harm someone or not, or to be a jerk to somebody or not, whether or not that's true, anything that posits that separation, including consciousness itself, is an attack on truth. Ooh, consciousness, that's a word that we talk a lot about in the spiritual community. What is it? Well, consciousness involves a subject and an object, duality. Two, because one has to have something to be conscious of. Huh. It's the domain of the ego. Jesus says this in A Course in Miracles. That's indeed correct. So, what is justice? Well, it's the correction of injustice. What may be very, very helpful as you unpack this idea is to equate justice with forgiveness here in the world. Our function here, according to the thought system of A Course in Miracles, which we're invited at every moment to choose over the thought system of the ego. Happiness over suffering? Who's in? Just saying. Forgiveness is defined here in many ways, and it's correctly identified as an illusion itself. Why is forgiveness an illusion? In other words, why is justice an illusion? Because there's nothing ultimately to forgive. God is love and perfect oneness. There is no other to forgive, and there's no other to have ever done anything wrong. There's perfect oneness. So, in truth, which is reality, there's nothing to forgive. Here in the world, there's everything to forgive. Everything, every appearance, every situation, everyone, especially yourself, because who is doing all of the forgiving? Who's doing all the projecting? There's nobody out there. There's no separation of any kind. So a forgiveness must include you. Because when you forgive someone else, you are actually forgiving yourself anyway. When you forgive the world, you're forgiving yourself. It's quite helpful as you do any forgiveness practice, whatever words you choose to use, to include the attitude that you forgive yourself for dreaming it, for making it all up. Very, very important. So, I mean, really, what is justice? Well, you can equate it with forgiveness. It is correction of error. Yeah. What's the error? We're separate. That's the error. We think we've separated from God himself. It's not possible. It's just a mistake. So justice can be equated with forgiveness. It is an illusion that does not contain the seeds of other illusions. Neither does forgiveness, when properly practiced according to this course. Forgiveness as the world practices it is not true forgiveness, because we tend to hold things over other people. An example, somebody pisses you off, you say, oh, I'll forgive you this time, but if you ever do it again, I'll rip you to shreds. I'll cancel your birthday, or I'll walk out on your ass. or even worse language than that. Ever said that to anybody? You don't have to self-identify. Forgiveness is much deeper than that. It's a true extension of love. Yes, it's an illusion, like justice is an illusion, but it is an illusion that leads to the truth. It does not contain the seeds of error. You overlook error when you forgive. God's justice overlooks error, doesn't even recognize it. So that's what justice is. And as we talked about earlier here, it's not our legal system. There's one, I've been to law school, guys, by the way. I have one of those big fancy degrees. It's over here. It's actually in my closet. It's not hanging up. I've got really pretty artwork hanging up here. And you can see only just a fraction of that behind me. On all of the other walls, there are beautiful objects of art and a couple of bookcases here. So I don't have that degree hanging up, but I know where it is. And I also know that I spent 3.5 years of this lifetime bleeding figuratively for it. So I know what the legal system is all about. And it's not a justice system. The one predominant word that stands out the most from law school for me, versus. Versus. So-and-so versus so-and-so. Smith v. Smith. Roe v. Wade. Yeah, Brown v. Board of Education. So-and-so versus so-and-so. Think about that. Let that one land a little bit. Versus. So the entire system, how can it be a justice system? It posits a separation by the very nature of it, and an opposition. It's defining and defending personal territory. It's one of many, many examples here in the world. So what do we do with all that? Well, we show up in the present moment and practice forgiveness. We practice leaving all of this behind, seeing through the illusion by just setting it aside, forgiving yourself, forgiving your brother, forgiving the world, forgive the ego, forgive everything. Everything that shows up in your experience is an opportunity, custom made, presented on a silver shiny platter for you to use and take advantage of, and use as an opportunity to forgive and get yourself home, so to speak. You've never left. You know what I'm saying? It's an opportunity for awakening on a platter, hand delivered, custom delivered for you. It's better than Amazon by a lot. And you don't have to spend money on it. You don't have to pull out your credit card. So I think I just found the title of this video. Better than Amazon. Oh yeah, yeah. It's not only possible, it's certain. So go forth, and I will see you on the next video here. Thanks as always for joining me.